Hello everyone. In today's video, I'll show you how you can create this beautiful watercolor style Christmas fireplace in Procreate. I will guide you through by sharing my favorite techniques to bring this beautiful fireplace to life. Whether you're an advanced skilled artist or starting out your journey, these tips will help you take your art to the next level. All the brushes and the canvases I've used will be found in the description below. You can download the free stamp and color palettes there as well. For today's demonstration, I'll be using the Rough Groove canvas, but you could use any canvas you like. As you can see, I have already imported my stamp, making sure that it is underneath the watercolor texture canvas effect, and all the paintings will be underneath the stamp. Let's warm things up with a happy fireplace. It's the heart of the room. To begin, I like to focus on the bigger areas of the painting and then move into smaller areas as we go along. So we'll start with the stones, the wood frame, and the Christmas tree. And then we'll focus on the fireplace. And we'll begin by picking a light gray tone color. And you don't need to worry about picking the perfect colors because I have the color palettes here for you available. And we'll put a light small tone color around the fireplace from the stones. We're going to start off with using the flat brush. So we'll keep the size to around 35% and keep 100% opacity. And we're going to just go right across, and we can erase the socks and the frames of the wood later on. And just like Santa Claus coming down the chimney, we're just going to go straight down like this, smooth. And we'll paint the inside of the fireplace just like this. And then we'll move right across to the fireplace on the right. I really enjoy using the flat brush because it already has a rectangular shape with very defined lines, giving it that nice crisp edge, perfect for geometric shapes, like the fireplace. If you are enjoying these tutorials and find them helpful, hit that like button, subscribe to my channel to be notified when the new videos comes out. Now we're going to add a mid-tone color, and it's going to be slightly muted red tone color. And we'll focus on the outer layers because the light is coming from the middle. So just like this, focusing on the edges. And it's important to create multiple layers to create that depth for the natural look of stones with shadows, lights, and imperfections. And we'll focus on the right side of the fireplace stones. And don't forget the top, which is going to be a little bit darker. Don't aim for perfection, just have a little bit of fun, mimicking a natural stone work. A little bit of the midtones to create some shadows here and there, while soaking up all the warmth of the fire. And this bottom lip of the fireplace is going to be a little bit darker because it's going to be edged a little bit forward, getting less light from the fireplace. We can reduce the size to around 8% to focus on this lip here. And just like this, we'll focus on the third tone color, and we'll begin using the rough wash brush this time. And start with a new layer, keeping the opacity to around 50% opacity and 50% size. And just like this, we're going to add the third tone color. Stones aren't just gray. There are all sorts of little surprises of different colors. By adding multiple colors, we give this fireplace some character that feels a lot more alive and organic. It's going to be a little bit darker at the bottom here, getting less light. Now we're going to add just one more dark tone color inside of the fireplace to make it more darker and creating a lot more depth. So we're going to pick a dark gray brown tone color here. Again, focusing on the rough wash brush with 100% opacity and around 45% size. And we'll focus on the top corners, getting the most less light from the fireplace while creating depth and perception. And add some of that dark tones at the bottom lip too. Now what we're going to do is we're going to use our fingers to pinch the 3 tone colors that we just created and create them into one. And then we'll blend them together using the moving blender, keeping the size to around 50% and slightly just going over like this, creating a nice mixture of tones, bringing them all together with a little bit of soft touch. Now we'll use the eraser tool and pick the fine line brush, and we're going to erase some of the areas to clean things up a bit. So we don't want the gray tones in the socks, so we're going to erase the parts there. When you do paint the bricks, you can paint around them, but I like to use multiple layers, making it really easy to erase some parts that I don't want them to. It really allows me to be just carefree and work with the tone colors, focusing less on the precision of the socks going around them. Now we'll focus on the sturdy wooden beam across the top. So pick this light brown tone color using the flat brush again, and we're going to create a new layer. And keeping the size to around 35% with 100% opacity. And we're just going to go straight along, just like this. Since there is a bottom piece that we can see from the fireplace, we're going to pick a dark tone color from the brown and keeping the size to around 7% and just go right across, just like this. This will give a nice 3D effect of the wooden beam protruding outwards a little bit. And don't forget the little pieces on the side that's holding up the beam. And we're going to use the eraser tool again to clean things up with the socks. Now focusing on the bottom floors of the fireplace, using that flat brush and keep that same tone color that we used for the fireplace beam here. Keeping the size to around 20% and just going up and down, creating some uneven textures and looks. By using the same tone colors as what we used for the fireplace beam, this makes the painting a bit more cohesive in structure rather than keeping them separate. And viewers are naturally drawn towards patterns and repetition while guiding the viewer's gaze into the fireplace, almost like a nice beautiful window. And now we'll put a second tone color, picking that tone color that we used for the bottom piece of the wooden beam, and just roll right across. Because the stones are covering some of the fireplace, they're getting less light right in front of the wooden piece. And now we're going to use a fast blender, pinch our fingers together and combine them, and then we'll go right across, making it blend really quick. Now let's start with the shape of the happy Christmas tree. We'll start off with creating a new layer and pick this light green tone color, and then pick the wet on wet brush. We'll keep the size to around 65%, 100% opacity. And from the top, we're going to go all the way down, swinging left and right, keeping the brush strokes thicker at the bottom pieces. And it's important to just be messy and go with the flow with this tree. And now we're going to pick a mid-tone color and creating a new layer. And because the fireplace is creating some light to the left side of the Christmas tree, the mid-tones and the dark tones are going to be mostly on the right side, a little bit on the left as well. Leaving some of the light tone colors to come through. It's just important to work with layers like this because evergreens are darker and the branches are a little bit wild on their own. So working with layers like this helps a lot, bringing that realism of the Christmas tree. And to make those realistic pine trees coming out of the branches, we're just going to dab across just like this, slightly putting less pressure as it tapers off. And now we'll focus on the third layer now, create a new layer, and pick the start tone color, and start from the top and all the way to the bottom. Almost like brushing out the fan with a little bit of flick at the bottom. Just dropping in some of that dark tone colors wherever you want it to be. It feels good when you don't know when to stop. Now we can't forget about the beautiful star on top of the Christmas tree. So we'll pick a bright yellow tone color, using the smooth brush, keeping the size to around 30%, and create a beautiful star on the top. And then we can create a new layer and add a mid-tone color for the star to have a nice shadow. Just focusing on the right side because the light's coming from the fireplace on the left. Now we can focus on the Christmas ornaments. We'll start with the yellow tone color that we used before, keeping the size to around 25%. And we're using that smooth brush. And smooth brush is great because it creates a nice opaque tone color. And just randomly pick the ones that you want to paint with the yellow tone colors. Be wild. Do whatever you want. This is your world. I'm going to leave some of them uncolored because we're going to pick a red tone color to match with the yellow. So pick the red tone color and just create little ornaments like this. Small, big, doesn't matter. They all belong together in this one tree. Now we can add some Christmas lights to bring some sparkle into this Christmas tree. So we're going to create a new layer and actually use a default brush that comes with Procreate called the light pen, and pick this light yellow tone color that we used before. And just like this, we're gonna go across, almost like they're hanging down, giving that extra sparkle with tiny lights. Now to give that extra sparkle into the Christmas ornaments, we're going to paint just around the areas where the lights should be shining across the shiny little ball. So if the lights are at the top, we want to paint at the top. And if the lights are a bit more at the bottom, we're going to go focus on the bottom parts to give that nice shine of the reflection of the light. Now let's focus on the Christmas presents. We can never forget about the Christmas presents. Now we're going to create a new layer and pick a red tone color that we used for the ornaments before and use the flat brush and keep the size to around 5 to 6%. And we're going to paint the Christmas presents just like this. Focusing on the outer layers of the box, leaving the ribbons open so we can paint them later. I put different size of boxes, big, small, long, just to keep it variety and interesting. Now I picked another dark yellow tone color to paint the next present that we have next to the big one. Now I picked a green tone color for the ribbons to be colored. Reducing the size to around 1% for the flat brush, and just like this, we're going to paint. I picked some simple colors to match everything that we have. Try not to have too many wild colors, because the presents are there to support this painting. Now we can focus on the evergreens on top of the wooden frame. So we're going to create a new layer and pick that same light tone color that we used for the Christmas tree and the wet on wet brush again. Keeping the size to around 50% and painting just across like this. And just focus across the line here like this. Doesn't have to be perfect again, just a little bit bushy, wild, and a bit out of control, just like Christmas times. And again, we're going to create a new layer and add a second mid-tone color, focusing on the center where it's going to be a little bit darker. Painting just all the way across. Then create a new layer and add the dark tone color for the last bits. And just focusing on the last bits of the center here, creating a little bit more depth. Pick that red tone color that we used for the ornaments, and to give a little bit more shine to the top of the evergreens, I put some holly berries on the top and use that smooth brush again to make it really pop out like this and go all the way across like that. Now we can focus on the candles, so we're going to pick this light tone color and use the flat brush, keeping the size to the lowest setting that we have because the candles are a bit small. And just like this. Now we're going to put some lights on the top using that light pen again from Procreate, and even giving that glow to the lights at the top here like this. And you know what? I want it to be a little bit wild to give those berries a little bit of shine as well with the light pen. Now we're going to paint the stockings hanging on the frames. So we're going to pick that red tone color that we used before and use our wet on dry brush. Keeping the opacity at 100% and just going all the way across like this. And of course, we can't just have one stocking hanging up. We added some friends of its own. More the better, because Santa's gonna have to fill them eventually. And I wanted to give a bit more character, so I added a new layer and added a mid-tone colors to add some texture and character. Keeping everything at 100% opacity and picking a darker tone color from the red and just filling it out just like this. It's going to be a little bit darker on the top because the fireplace is lighting up the socks a little bit, so we'll do that. And to create some light blue tones to the top of the stockings in the white spot. And just like this, we're going to fill up the white spots with some little bit of blue tone colors like this to give a bit more depth and character. Now it's time to focus on the fire. So we'll pick that light brown tone color that we used for the wooden frames, keeping the size to around 2%. And we're going to create a new layer and use the flat brush this time. And just fill in the wooden parts of the bottom here. That's feeding the fire. And then we'll create a new layer and add a second tone color of the midtones. Reduce the size, and then we'll focus on the bottom pieces to give it more depth. And we're going to pick this light yellow tone color and using the rough wash brush this time and keeping the size to around 100% and 100% opacity and focusing on the edges like this. And just fill in the center. And now we're going to add a mid-orange tone color, adding a new layer just like this on top of the yellow that we have. This will give a nice glow of the ambient light coming from the fire. A little bit on the edges and a little bit in the center. And now we're going to combine all the layers together and use the regular blender, in the size to around 20% and mixing them up just like this. With a little bit of control of where the color goes rather than using the moving blender. Now we're going to use the light pen again and focusing on the center using the light pen. It gives a nice glow and the white tone colors in the center. Now we're going to add some sparkling amber sparks, flickering out from the flames. This really gives a nice cozy effect as it looks like the fire is actually lit up and flaring away. And then we'll create a new layer, now to give a nice glow to everything that we have, to the fireplace that's lighting everything up. Now we're going to pick the soft blush brush here and keeping the size to around 20 to 30% and just lightly put some pressure all the way across the painting like this in the center of the fireplace. Lighting everything up, keeping everything cozy and nice and warm. We can zoom out and focus on some of that layers on top to make the entire fireplace with the stones light up with warmth. And don't forget to light the Christmas tree on the right side. And then we'll create a new layer. Now since we added that light effect, we have to add the shadows to give that realism. So we're going to pick a dark blue tone color from here and use the rough hard edge brush, keeping the opacity to around 40% and 100% size. And focusing on the bottom pieces, and then we'll move our way up here. And adding some shadows to the behind the presents like this. By adding shadows like this, it creates that realism effect, making the painting pop out. Wherever you feel like the lights will be or casting a shadow, that's where we're going to put. And we can add some of those darker edges by reducing the opacity to increase that depth of the natural stone look. And of course, underneath the wooden frame, that's going to be a little bit darker. And because the candles are on the top, lighting things up from there, underneath the wooden frame is going to be a bit darker too with some shadow casting. We're going to increase the opacity to 100% and focusing on the inside of the fireplace, which is going to be a little bit darker, adding more depth. And just painting on the top only, and then we're going to use the feathering brush, keeping the size to around 20 to 30%, and we're going to drag some of that color downwards. Simple, without doing too much, creates more depth in the darkness. And there we have it, a beautiful Christmas fireplace with a Christmas tree and some presents. Once you finish the painting, you can export it as a PNG or a PDF and print it out, making some beautiful Christmas cards for your family, friends, and all your loved ones. It's a beautiful way to share joy, creativity, with a little bit of personal touch with your loved ones. It's not just a digital product anymore, it's a physical form that you can share, print, so you can show off to your family and your friends what you just created. And if you enjoyed this tutorial and want to continue painting with me, click on the next video and I'll see you there.